audio original para que puedan escuchar la interpretación del inglés al español, y si se están conectando desde una tableta o desde su dispositivo móvil, las opciones son un poco diferentes. Tienen que tocar su pantalla, seleccionamos los 3 puntos, nuevamente interpretación de idiomas, seleccionamos español y al final finalizado, terminado o listo. Ahora voy a dar las mismas indicaciones, pero en inglés. Hello, everyone. Today we have interpretation available for those who need it. If you're joining from a computer, at the bottom of the Zoom menu, you will see a word-like icon. You can, that says language interpretation. You can select it and then select English. And if you are joining from a tablet or from your phone, you can tap your screen, select the 3 dots, language interpretation, and then English. And at the end, done or finished. So you can listen to the interpretation from Spanish into English. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you for those instructions. If anyone is having any issues selecting your interpretation channel, please do feel free to let us know. And just a reminder for everybody in this group, and especially our presenters, please do be mindful of the pace that you're speaking at. Try to speak a little more slowly for our interpretation team. And so we'll move on in our slides. So here you're seeing our renaming convention, which is important for our attendance tracking and stipend distribution process. We ask that if you are a member of the CSC, please indicate that in your Zoom name by either noting CSC and an R if you are a resident. Here we have another reminder about the naming conventions. So if you are not a member of the CSC, please write your organization name in your Zoom name so we have an idea of who is here and who is a member of the public. Here we have our virtual meeting etiquette. So we ask that folks stay muted unless you are speaking. And if you are joining by the phone, you can press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. If you have any questions or thoughts that you would like to share, we ask that you raise your Zoom hand to help us keep track. And if you are on the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. And we have another reminder for residents in our stipend program. We ask that you stay on for at least 75% of the meeting, which is 90 minutes out of our 2 hours together. And here we have our group agreements that we review at the top of every meeting to help us have a productive discussion and respectful dialogue. So I'll take a moment to read through these. So everyone has agreed to help achieve the meeting goals by focusing on solutions, opportunities, and productive dialogue. We want to make sure that we're mindful of creating space for everyone in this meeting to participate. So if you tend to talk a lot, maybe step back and allow others to take up more space. And if you tend to be more quiet, we really do hope to hear from you in these meetings. Next, we also ask for everyone to be kind and respectful, knowing that it's okay to disagree as long as you do so with respect and empathy. In these meetings, we have also agreed to stay on point and on time. So we ask folks to try to keep your comments brief to give everybody a chance to participate, especially for our newer CSC members. And as we've said before, we recognize the urgency and importance of these conversations, so we never want to cut them short if the CSC would like to continue. So if we are running short on time, what we do is bring the decision back to the community, the CSC, and ask how you would like to use the rest of the meeting. And so moving on, we agreed to attack the problem and not the person. And then finally, we agreed to seek common ground. Building consensus and finding shared values will help us all achieve the best results. And my last slide here is the agenda for this evening. As a reminder, these agenda topics are representative of those that are requested by CSC members, which have come through our past CSC meetings together, as well as our agenda setting meetings. So tonight we'll have our welcome and introductions. We'll review our action items tracker. Then we'll move on to our passenger vehicle replacement measure discussion. And then we'll also have time for our vegetative barriers measure discussion. And then we have several updates to share. And then we'll start wrapping up our meeting and have our final public comments. And so I'll stop sharing. And we can move on to our welcome and introductions. And again, just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. And also want to say that it was so nice and such an honor to get to meet so many of you in person early last month. It feels like it was forever ago, but it was just last month. Being in person is definitely a different kind of experience than being in our virtual Zoom meetings. And as you saw on the agenda, we'll have some time today to continue some of those discussions from our in-person and hear some of your thoughts. And so I would like to invite our Air District representative and our co-leads to share any opening remarks. And also excited to welcome back Jessica.
Thank you, Liz. Hi, everyone. This is Jessica Olson. I'm the Director of Community Strategies and Resources with the Air District. I'm going to briefly share because I can't help it. I was gone for about 4 months having this little nugget. This is Penelope Olson. And she is just like Eleanor was. She's going to be a big part of 617. I'm so grateful to share this virtual space with you all, but definitely sad that I had to miss the in-person meeting. I heard so many great things. And like Liz said, we worked with the co-leads to really address a lot of the questions and concerns and issues and progress based on our December meeting. So we're really looking forward to digging into that tonight. And I welcome the co-leads to also introduce themselves and welcome you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Congratulations, Jessica, I think on behalf of everyone here. And thank you everyone for joining us. It's the last year went by flying, and we're going to be seeing a lot of implementation this year for some of the projects that we've been talking about. So excited to get into that.
I want to welcome everybody to this new year. And as Cesar mentioned, we're going to have a lot of SERPs development. And welcome back, Jessica. We really missed you, and we're here to make changes in our community, and seeing the community all gathered here, it makes a progress in this process. Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you, Cesar and Bianca, for that really great framing. I don't think I can add anything else. And I think we can continue on through our agenda and move to our action item tracker review. So we do this again at every meeting to help facilitate transparency and accountability. Our team in the Air District continuously updates the action item tracker to ensure that the community's requests are documented and that you all stay informed on the progress that's being made towards implementing your suggestions. So as Eric provides updates, please feel free to ask for clarification. And if there's anything we can't answer tonight, we will be sure to take note and follow up with an answer. And one final note, some action items that came from our last CSC, from our in-person meeting, may look and sound a little different. And just want to note that that's because of the different venue and the different kinds of conversations that were had. And I'll pass it to Eric.
Thank you so much, Liz. Yeah, I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen. Alrighty, can folks see my screen? Awesome, yeah. Thank you. Alrighty, just want to refresh everyone's memory and just a little bit of the changes that we kind of had in 2023, where we just made accessibility a little bit easier for folks with some of these links, the in progress, complete, ongoing, and committed. So as always, you could click on these and it'll take you straight to those sections. All right. Our first action item that's in progress is that the district is to follow up about some tree cutting that's happening on the 223. So the Air District has connected with Caltrans, and we're still looking to pinpoint some of those tree cutting or tree trimming areas. So Lorena from Caltrans wanted to extend her phone number and her email so we could pinpoint that. And if any folks wanted to send me any locations, I'll go ahead and forward that to her. Okay. And we could go ahead and go to the bottom of the screen and return to the beginning. So I'll go and go into my complete section. So the district is to create and share fact sheets for vegetative barriers. And I know this is complete, and we're going to talk about that today, actually. Okay, turn to the top, go to our ongoing section. So the Air District will connect with Caltrans about potential participation in vegetative barriers programs and provide the CSC with updates. So we are going to continue to work with Caltrans and their participation with the vegetative barriers and urban greenings program. All right, scroll next. All righty. The Air District is to draft a list of locations where the Ag Commissioner can connect with growers. So as always, we will connect with the Ag Commissioner and see if possible areas are ready for outreach for small farmers, for vegetative barriers, and urban greening. Okay. All righty, our last item. If CSC members have any school contacts who district can reach out to about vegetative barriers projects, please share with the Air District. As always, feel free to share any contacts you may have with any school officials or any folks that can help us out plant these vegetative barriers and urban greening. I'll leave it open for any questions and return to the top. Oh, I see a hand. Go ahead, Sandra.
Yeah, a couple of months ago, I had asked if the current energy refinery could give standing updates on any violations during the month. I don't know if that was ever addressed during the action tracker. And I know we didn't talk about it. So can we get an update on that?
I can jump in, Eric. Actually, and maybe I know we high level went over the agenda, which had standing updates, but one of the standing updates today is from Kern Energy. So thank you, Sandra, for that. And that's a good reminder that we can go back to that action item and make sure that it's like the status update is updated. But yes, and thank you for showing that right now. You can see on the screen, Kern Energy is one of our standing updates today.
All righty, thank you. Go ahead and go back.
Thank you, Eric. Any other questions or comments about the action items before we move on? Not seeing any. So I'll pass it to Amy.
Good evening, everyone. It's so great to see your faces and see your names on these boxes. And as Liz mentioned, it was such an honor and a privilege to be in the same space as you all in December. I can't believe it's already been over a month since we've seen each other. For those of you who got the opportunity to attend the in-person meeting, you know that one of the World Cafe conversations that we had was around passenger vehicle replacement measure. And so today we want to continue that discussion. So during the in-person meeting, we had an opportunity to hear directly from the Air District staff about how this measure was cultivated and hear about some of the potential rules and boundaries for ensuring that this program gets launched and implemented in Arvin, Lamont. So I want to remind everyone tonight that today's conversation is to help clarify some of the questions that you all had and to continue the discussion so that we can arrive at consensus eventually on what you all would like to see out of the passenger vehicle replacement measure. So with that said, I'd like to pass it over to the Air District to provide us with today's presentation. We know that folks will have a lot of questions, so please feel free to raise your hand and we will call on you as you raise your hand. And then if there's just too many questions at the same time, we'll come up with the system to ensure that everybody's question is answered. So with that said, the floor is yours, Air District.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos. I'm going to have Eric from my team pull up the slides. And if we can make them full screen. Perfect. Present. Yeah, if you click, actually where you just were, Eric, and then present. There we go. Perfect. Thank you all. Like Dr. Ramos mentioned, we have been, I know I wasn't there for all of it, but I've certainly reviewed some of the meeting materials, saw the recordings and talked with my team and a few of you actually one-on-one about the implementation of passenger vehicles. So if we can go to the next slide, Eric. We have two things we're going to talk about today. This presentation is going to cover passenger vehicle replacement. And then as Eric kind of previewed for you in the action items, the vegetative barriers discussion is really going to center around a little handout that we have. So we'll get to that after this presentation. So next slide. Here's just a quick reminder, and I just want to go back, as Dr. Ramos just mentioned, about the little bit of the history of this and some of the feedback I've heard from you all. So as you know, in the SERP, there is funding for the replacement of passenger vehicles with battery electric, so that's an electric vehicle, fully electric, or plug-in hybrid, so that's where you plug it in. It's can be electric in short spurts, but can also use gas vehicles. So that's replacing an older vehicle with a new or used vehicle. And we'll talk a little bit about those details on the next slide. Again, as a reminder, there's a $4 million allocation that you all helped us create when we went through that participatory budgeting exercise. And there's a little caveat to this, but right now it is approved by CARB, but we have talked with you all, and you'll see in some of the next steps on a little bit of the administrative work from Valley Can or Valley Clean Air Now, who you've also met with at previous meetings. So that's the group, and we'll talk more about this in a minute, that helps us run this program. So some of the details, as a reminder, is that the low-income qualified residents can get rid of their older vehicles and get funding toward a new or used vehicle. And so the slides we're going to walk you through are hopefully going to answer some of the frequently asked questions, concerns, and a little bit of just the clarification that we heard pretty often during the meeting. So I'm going to try, if we can, Dr. Ramos and Liz, if we can get through at least a handful of the slides before we take questions, because I hope that a lot of the slides will answer maybe some of the anticipated questions. And then certainly we'll start taking questions. I'll let you know when I think it makes sense, if that's okay with folks. All right, next slide. So here is just a table, but what we're going to do is we have a couple of slides that walk us through like real world examples of what this means. So just as a reminder, and something that we acknowledge wasn't fully discussed in this detail up front, is that for low income qualified residents, which again will be on the table on the following slide, that live in the 617 boundary. So all of you residents that are on this call today, live in the 617 boundary, are eligible for different types of funding for vehicles. If anyone who is eligible for this program wants to buy a new electric vehicle, they are eligible for $20,000. That plug-in hybrid, which is the one that still uses gasoline but can use electric, is just slightly lower if you're buying a new vehicle at $18,000. One of the questions that I've heard a lot over the past few months is, well, what about stacking or layering other programs that are available, maybe not at the district, but at other agencies? And we want to tell you, yes, there is a program at PG&E for the same low-income qualified residents that buy a used vehicle, not new, but used, for an electric vehicle from the district program for AB 617, you're eligible for $12,000 and $11,500, so just $5,000 or $500 less for if you get the hybrid one that takes gas. You can also separately get $4,000, and I'll walk you through a little bit of what that means. So this is just a reminder. I know that we've gone through this with you all in a little bit of a different way, but this is just a reminder of sort of all of the options for you. We wanted, of course, through this program that in a different capacity we've been running across the valley, we want to make sure folks have options, that they're not just told that they have to get all electric, or they're not just told that they have to buy a new vehicle, which could be more expensive. So we see this table here as sort of an equitable approach to allowing for different options for different folks. And as I'll go over with the PG&E rebate.
Jess?
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I going too fast?
Yeah, Jess, I'm so sorry. The presentation is in all English.
Oh, that's weird. Maybe
I think we just need to grab the translated version.
One is on there. Thank you. I'm so glad you said that. I was looking at the top part. If we go in the folder, Eric. Thank you, Maricela. We do have it translated completely, and I think we might have just posted the untranslated one. Thanks, team. Thank you. Perfect. All right. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry. Can everyone see? Thank you so much, Maricela, and everyone for being patient. Hopefully everyone can see this now. And I'll just briefly, hopefully the interpretation caught the verbal update of what I mentioned. But I'll just really quickly mention that this table, this is the approach that we think best allows people to not just have to go to electric. You can see here that you can get something new that's electric or hybrid, or you can get something new that's electric or hybrid and layer additional funding, which again was a question from folks last time. There is more information on this slide, and we're happy to drop it in the chat about that PG&E program, which I just want to caveat is not a district program, it's an additional program. So we'll definitely add that in here. All right, Eric, next slide, please. So how does this program work? This is just a reminder. I know that folks were at the in-person meeting and got a chance to be like in space at the World Cafe, but just a reminder, you could be eligible for this program if you are a household in that left-hand column, that's the size or number of people that live in your home, and you make that number or less in your annual income. Some of the questions that we'll address at the end, I will get to the questions about like kind of what that means in terms of eligibility for other programs. Does this count as new income? I'll just preview and say that this is an equity program and this is not intended to make you ineligible for anything else. So we'll address that later, but I just want you to know that this is the table that we look at to see if folks qualify based on that low income amount. Next slide, Eric. So the program, how does it work? So you have to own, so not only do you have to be in that low income, and that's kind of one of the bullets here. So that's kind of the first thing. And for our program, of course, we're talking about folks that live in the boundaries. So that's the second thing. But then there are a few other requirements. The whole point, of course, as you all know, when we developed this, is to get rid of older vehicles that are on the road. So the older vehicle has to be 2006 or older, and it has to be owned for at least 6 months or more. It also has to have been used in the past 2 years and be operable. So the household income level right there, that's just the table that was on this previous slide. You must have a valid California driver's license to go through the program. And something that's not mentioned on here, but the new car you get has to be 2017 or newer. So what happens with this program is that once you meet all of these requirements through going through the application process, then there's a really catered approach to helping you purchase the new vehicle and make sure that you come out only paying a small amount or potentially just tax, title, and registration. I'll explain what that means on the next slide. Go ahead, Eric. So we have a couple of examples for you. And we went through and saw actual cars that are for sale right now in your area to use these examples. So these are real world examples. So in this example, Josie lives in Lamont with their partner and 2 kids. Together, Josie and their partner make $88,000 a year, which qualifies them based on the low income eligibility table that I just reviewed. They have a 2005 Honda Civic and want to buy a used electric car. So they work with the district in Valley Clean Air Now, or Valley CAN, to apply for the program. Once approved, they shop at Bakersfield CarMax. That is one of the places on our list of eligible dealerships. And they find a used 2019 Nissan Leaf electric vehicle for $16,000. As you saw on that table, if you remember, if you were buying a used fully electric vehicle, you were eligible for $12,000. So this is taken off the price of the car at the dealership. And what that really means is that the Valley Can partners help bring a check straight to the dealership. So it's not like you're getting the money later. You're getting the money off right at the top. So you, as a resident, don't have to come up with that amount of money. The remainder, which is the difference between the $16,000 and the $12,000, would just be the $4,000 plus tax, title, and registration. The cool part about this is that PG&E layered approach where you can stack that other rebate, because this is a used electric vehicle that's being replaced for someone who is low income qualified, they can submit all of their information and receive a rebate check for that $4,000 that they paid. So this Josie's family, who now lives in the Boundary, who qualified under low income and bought a used fully electric vehicle, can now drive that car, and it only costs them the tax, title, and registration. I'm going to walk through one more example, and then I'm going to stop for any questions. All right, so this is another example, and I'll just shout out to our co-leads who helped us walk through these and kind of helped us come up with a couple of types of examples. So in this example, Cecilia and Pat are retired and live next to Arvin High School. Through Social Security, they earn $57,000 a year, and that's their total income for the year. And that qualifies them based on the low income eligibility table. They want to get rid of their 2003 Beetle and buy a new electric car. So this is a brand new car in this case. They work with the district and Valley Can to apply for the program. And once they're approved, they find a new 2003 Chevy Bolt EV at, oops, that shouldn't say Trace. Sorry, that should say Richland. Sorry, that's my bad. It's down in the one below, but Richland Chevrolet, which is another dealership that is eligible in your area. That was for $28,000. So new cars are certainly, of course, as we know, more expensive than used cars, but that qualifies them for more funding. They are eligible for $20,000 through this program. As you all know, that's the amount that we talk about the most because they're new electric. And that's taken off at the same way that I just mentioned, where a check is brought to the dealership and the resident is not responsible for that $20,000. So Cecilia then decides she wants to finance and pay the remaining $8,000 through a car loan, plus, of course, tax, title, and registration. So now shopping at the Richland Chevrolet, Cecilia and Pat drive a brand new electric car that costs them $8,000 plus tax. That PG&E part, where that $4,000 that Josie and her family were eligible for, that is only for used cars. So you can kind of see a little difference there. So this next slide, really quickly, and I'll stop on, sorry, two more slides, because this is the examples we just, sorry, slow down. The examples, right here, yep. I just want to mention the two examples I just gave are two cars that are right now available at two dealerships in your area. So that is the Richland Chevrolet dealership and the CarMax in Bakersfield. And we'll talk a little bit about that when I start taking questions, but I did want you to know that we have those links here and the list of all the dealerships here as well. And then next slide. So I'm going to stop here, answer these questions and then take further questions if that works for folks. One of the questions we heard is whether folks will receive a tax document from us in receiving the check through, straight to the dealership. We don't distribute a tax document or report this as income. We're not tax experts, so I can't tell you, I can't give tax advice or income advice, but we don't expect, because this is an equity program, and we have not yet expected or had folks be ineligible for services or assistance based on being a part of this program. And yes, Bianca, we know Richlands in the city of Shafter. We were just mentioning a couple of examples of Kern County areas. And maybe this bleeds right into my next point. We only have a few dealerships in the area. And by the area, I'm just thinking of like the Kern County area. So are there more dealerships planned? That is a great question. And I think to Bianca's point, I looked to Richland Chevrolet because it was like the one option I could find that had a new car to use for this example. And so we're always looking for more, and that's something that our team will continue to assess to make the program more accessible to folks. And the last one is, will folks in Arvin Lamont qualify based on income? And what I mean by that is we've heard some folks say, or some questions about why there's an income qualifier. And what I can tell you, and like I said, I have a few folks here that can help answer questions, is that the average household size is 4 people in Arvin with a median income of less than 41,000. And so based on that low income eligibility table and based on the data that we have, we feel like many residents will be eligible for this program. That said, I want to let you know that we've talked with some folks, both during the meeting and since the meeting on this CSC, and wanted to let you know that once we open this program, if from 6 months from opening, we have no people interested, we find that no one qualifies based on income or their car, we definitely want to work with you all to reassess and see if there's ways that we can amend and try to figure out the best target audience. Based on our experience, we don't expect that to happen, but we want to 100% let you know that this whole AB 617 program is about launching programs, reassessing, and making adjustments. We've done it in all of our other communities for other types of programs. And so we definitely want to see if that's the case here. So while we don't think that's the case, we can totally launch it, do a ton of outreach, and find we're wrong and find we need to pivot. So I just want you to know that we're open to that as well. I will stop there. Thank you all for letting me go through all of that before we asked questions, but I am not the expert. I do have a few folks with me that can help answer questions as well. So we're definitely open to any questions you all have.
Thank you, Jessica. At this time, I'm not seeing any questions. I am seeing, oh, here we go. Well, before we go to the questions, I do see comments from Bianca. Richland Chevrolet is in the city of Shafter. And I see Sandra's hand was up first. So go ahead, Sandra.
Yeah, thank you. I have 2 questions. The first one is, what are the 3 dealerships in Kern that take on this program? And then my second question is, what is the outreach for this program going to look like?
Great question. And maybe Eric or oh, go ahead, Kevin. Maybe you can pop in there.
Yeah, thank you. I will pull up the list of dealerships. I don't know them off the top of my head, so I will come to that. But I can immediately give you some idea of the type of outreach that we do. We have had a really fortunate partnership working with Valley Clean Air Now. And this is an organization that has a lot of experience and process of working with local communities, getting out to them in person and finding ways to reach out directly. And I know that we've done programs with Valley Clean Air Now with our repairs in the Arvin Lamont area in the past. And so some of you might have experience having gone and gotten assistance with smog checks, for example, and that's worked with, that has been working with the Valley Clean Air Now team on that portion. And that same expertise is going to be going out into the communities to meet in person and have opportunities where people can come into our program. They do a great job. I've visited a number of the events that they do. They call them these in-person events where they bring in the applications and they have staff there who are capable of scanning all the paperwork that you bring in on the spot, getting it into our computer system so that we're able to rapidly process it. And those in-person events are some of the best ways to get into our program. I have a pop-up on my screen and it's confusing me, so I apologize. I'm going to hit cancel. And then that in that process, they'll get you involved. They go out to the communities. They use local advertising to let people know where they're happening. They've been doing this around the valley. We offer this same program valley-wide at a lower incentive level, and so when we've been able to get approval to start this program, we'll be able to do that more direct marketing, and Valley Can will be able to bring those in-person events directly to your community and be able to take applications on site. I'm seeing in the chat that people have posted in the names of the dealerships, so I'm not going to go look those up, and I'm going to thank Jess for that. But I hope that answers your question about outreach. There's other ways that you can get into the program as well. If you hear about it through word of mouth, you can go onto our webpage or call our Valley Can partners and start an application online, upload your own documents, or start an application over the phone with our Valley Can partners, and then they'll work with you on how to get the documentation uploaded. So there's word of mouth with these direct processes that we do, and it's I wish I could describe thoroughly all of what they do. It's beyond my
And this is Jessica. I'll just add to Kevin and say, and whatever else you all think is helpful. We are all ears. I know Heather's on here. We want to talk about outreach as a next step, but we felt like answering all your questions first was the better way to go about it. And then Sandra, I did drop in the chat. I did mention, I think all 3 dealerships in my presentation in some way, but CarMax Bakersfield, Nissan of Bakersfield, and then Richland Chevrolet I mentioned because it's in Shafter and in Kern County. And then I also dropped in the chat the dealership list.
And yeah, it's worth noting that dealership list will, we do ask that all of our dealers have their inventories available online. You can go to their webpage, find vehicles that are eligible, work with them over the phone, and be able to process a lot of this in that way if you choose to broaden your horizons and shop from Tracy Chevrolet if they turn out to have the vehicle that you wanted.
Thank you. That was super helpful. The only thing I would add is just if y'all can send like flyers and stuff to local CBOs and community-based organizations, we also have a good tie to the community, so we can always pass them out and inform our bases.
And that's one of the things that I forgot to mention that Valley Can does, is that they make flyers and they get them out to their partner agencies, and they do a great job, I think, in reaching out to CBOs. And I know that they're looking forward to having that opportunity once these are approved by CARB and we can start them up.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Sandra. I think Jesus Alonso, you're next.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on the reassessing process. So it sounds like we're gonna move forward with what we have currently. Would we say that we would review the results or reassess 3 months from now, 6 months from now? What does that look like? What would that report back look like?
Good question, Jesus. We recommend 6 months. It's kind of a process. So I think in 6 months from launch, and we'll update you all on the day we launch because of all of the outreach Kevin just mentioned and Sandra just mentioned. We want you all to be very aware, of course. And then we will update you regularly. Each month we post the tracker. And then at 6 months, Jesus, and we'll ask that the Harder team helps hold us accountable to that. We'll come to you all with a thorough update and then hold that space for assessing next steps.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Lorena, go ahead. And then Gustavo.
Buenas tardes. Yo tengo una pregunta respecto a los 4,000 que va a dar PG&E. ¿También uno tiene que aplicar para eso o automáticamente se lo van a dar? Para los carros usados.
This is Jessica. Great question. It is a separate application process. I know that there's I don't want to put folks on the spot, but I know there's someone from Valley Can on here if they want to talk a little bit more about it. It is separate, but I do also know that it is streamlined and that one of the qualifiers for being a part of that program is that you went through our program. So all of the information to get you qualified and all of the fact that you went through our program to get a used car automatically would qualify you for that. So it should be streamlined. Kevin, I saw you unmute, so you can help me answer any other question.
And again, this is a place where I can speak to our partnership with Valley Clean Air now, as you mentioned, Valley Can, that they had really worked to create this this process where they'll accept our income verification as their income verification. So that portion of our step will be completed. And Valley Clean Air now, I believe, assists with the process of putting that application together for eligible applicants who are going through our program. So they work to make sure that as they're asking and filling out the information through our application system, that they have it all set to go with you to finalize on the day that you're finalizing your other paperwork, so you could submit it right away. It is an extra step and it is an extra process, but it's one of the services that Valley Clean Air now has brought to this to make it really streamlined and as simple as possible for participants.
Great, thank you. Gustavo?
Just a clarifying question. I think in our meeting, in-person meeting in December, I heard a lot of comments about I think I will say the table of income qualification. Did you make any changes on that one, or keep it the same? Based on the feedback from the community.
Right. No, thank you, Gustavo. Great question. We did not make changes to the income eligibility. That was one of the, we were hoping to address, just let you know that based on information we have about the income and the household size in Arvin, we feel like this is going to meet the folks in need the most. So targeting the folks that have the lowest income, perhaps larger household sizes, could really use a new car, really targeting those folks first. But to the great kind of suggestion from Jesus, if in 6 months after launch, we find that that's not reaching anyone, then income might be one of the places we can start to look at eligibility. But we're pretty confident, based on the experience throughout the Valley and the information we have about the area, that a lot of the folks that really need it the most should be eligible, and should we do a lot of good outreach, will benefit the most from this program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gustavo and Jessica. Tim, go ahead with your question.
I had a sorry, I'm getting over a cough, but I had a question regarding the electric replacement vehicles. Nowhere in the funding does it mention infrastructure for them, because most of these vehicles are going to low-income community residents, are going to local members of our community that are low income. Most of them might not own their own homes, so they're renting, and then you're asking them to replace their vehicles, but you're not mentioning how they would charge these vehicles, because they would have to buy a charger and do improvements in homes.
This is Jessica. Kevin, maybe you can address a little bit about the type of charging you can do at home.
So I have been an electric driver for more than a decade. My first car was a 2012 Mitsubishi, and I have a variety of experience in charging. So I hope I can share some of that with you. For most drivers, the access to a standard 110 volt plug is sufficient for their daily needs, but not everybody even has access to that. As you say, many of the multi-home, multifamily dwellings won't necessarily have an opportunity for you to plug, in the outside parking areas. We are working, and I've got a meeting tomorrow morning with some statewide agencies and some multiple air districts in a program that will allow us to add on to this with our state funding, and you will be able to put this together when that one's complete and ready to go. An opportunity to have basically a charge card that can only be used for electric charging. That's funny thing, one of the tappy credit cards, and you'll be able to take that to a charge point or an EVgo or any of the variety of charge access companies that you might want to use and access the charging through that. It's a process that we're still going through, similar to the approvals with CARB that we're having with this program. So we might not have it available for the first customers when it first happens, but participants going through our program will be able to get up to $2,000 on one of those cards for charging, and that goes a long way. There's charging costs are often set by the host, and so sometimes you'll find charging at a wide variety of prices. But if you find a good price at some locations, that $2,000 can be a lot of miles of charging, especially if you're not doing it in the fastest charging options. If you're able to use the level 2 charging at destination chargers, and I apologize if that's a little jargonistic, but the chargers that are designed around places where people can be at for a long time, near movie theaters, near shopping outlets, rather than along the freeway where you can get 30 minutes of charge and have that take you a long way. Those fast ones cost a lot more, sometimes more than twice as much as the slower ones, but the slower ones can be a good value if there's one near where you will be or where you can find a reason to be.
Okay, and then it was a 2-question part, but the other question leads to another thing. One of the biggest issues I have with this program is the financing for it, because one of the examples mentioned in senior couple that was trading a Beetle and had to take a loan of $8,000. Most low income communities lack the access to financial institutions giving loans. The district hasn't mentioned any loan partners that will loan those loans to the low income, especially those residents who live in our communities that are non-citizens. That may want to try the program. You have not mentioned any kind of financial backers that would back these grants or loans so they can swap a vehicle. See, I'm kind of worried that we'll take the vehicle that might be working to give them an electric one, and they might not be able to get a loan to buy the electric one.
It's a very good question, and it's one that I understand, and I've worked in our car programs going back more than 15 years, and it's something that we've always struggled with is, how do we get people who are most in need and the least desirable targets for lenders or customers for lenders to be eligible. And we actually have been running this program, as I say, at a lower dollar amount across the valley with participants who are meeting these same low income thresholds, and we are finding that very many of them are able to receive financing. The amount of money that we're paying comes as a check to the dealership. It's treated like a down payment by the financing institution. So, cars that are purchased, and again, I apologize, I might go into a little jargon here, won't be upside down very long. They won't have, or at all, so it makes it's a lot more comfortable for the lenders to know that they're selling a new car that will never have a period of time where there's a gap. There's never going to be a time where the car is worth less than the loan, because that for the entire life of the loan, that Chevy, Bolt will be worth more than that $8,000 loan. So it takes a lot of risk off the lenders, and it makes them much more able to find partners in lending and working with these applicants. And our dealers, their financing arms, we don't do buy here, pay here type setups. But but dealers do work with reputable lenders in a lot of cases, especially new car dealers. I mean, you're aware of, GM Auto Financing, for example, and many of those, and they are very, very good at finding, projects or lenders that can work with our customers, and CarMax is a great example of that. I was working closely with CarMax about some of the language on our financing part, because their computer system that they use offers a financing, and it's very simple. So I think that I don't have numbers at my fingertips, but I could come up with some numbers for you to be able to say, we've done thousands of cars already at a lower incentive level and been able to get financing for a large number of those, new cars with 20,000 instead of the 12 or 9,000 that we've been doing in the past. We'll be able to get funding even easier, I think, through that. And I'm sorry, I'm long-winded. I'll stop.
Thank you, Kevin. You're a wealth of knowledge. It sounds like you might get a lot of follow-up calls from folks that have questions for you. So thank you for sharing. Jess, I'm not sure if you're about to answer the question in the comment.
I was just about to answer the question in the comment, and then I do see Bianca Lopez, who's a public member, but certainly a partner in other aspects of the Valley, has her hand raised and a great comment in the chat. So Bianca, if that's okay, I'm going to answer the other question from the CSC member, and then we can go to you if there's no other. Awesome. So I do see a question about why would this be limited to low income? The suggestion is that most high-end vehicles are combustion engines, gas guzzlers. They should also be incentivized if they live within the boundaries. So I'll just address, I think just going back to the goal and the spirit of AB 617 and of our SERP is to really serve underserved communities. And that includes not only folks that are maybe, disproportionately impacted because of historical redlining practices or race unfortunately determines, the health outcomes that they experience based on air quality impacts, but it's also folks that are socioeconomically disadvantaged that kind of go hand in hand with the spirit of environmental justice and AB 617. And so really this program is an equity program to target folks that otherwise couldn't take advantage or actually really to Tim's point, would otherwise probably have no way to get into a cleaner vehicle. So not only can they be a part of the clean air solution, but oftentimes it's not just that a high-end vehicle is high emitting, but folks that are in lower socioeconomic status might have older vehicles. So they're even dirtier than, say, a newer, larger or high-end vehicle. Oftentimes we find at these events, I was just at an event to do some of this work with Valley Can on Saturday in a different community. And we're talking old vehicles that you can smell them before you even see them. There's a lot going on, and getting folks into something cleaner, especially those that can't afford to maybe even get themselves a new car at all, is really the goal of the program. But to your point, obviously across the district, across the Valley, we want to get everyone into as clean of a car as possible. So that's still a goal Valley-wide, but really with this program, it's to target the folks that might need it the most.
Great. Looking to see if any other CSC members have any questions before we move to our public comment regarding this item, or public question. I'm not seeing any more hands or comments, so Bianca, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Bianca Lopez. I'm co-founder of Valley Improvement Projects, a nonprofit grassroots organization in the Stanislaus County area. I'm also a proud member of the Clean Vehicle Empowerment Collaborative. We do a lot of this community education awareness about incentive programs and just community education about EV 101 basics. And so I'd encourage members to check out our website and to register for EV 101 workshop. We also do policy advocacy work. But I wanted to ask, sorry, that was a plug for the CVEC EV equity team. They do a lot of great stuff. But I had a question about community outreach. What are the efforts that you're currently investing on to get the word out about this program? If you get small amount of interest, doesn't mean that people aren't interested. It might mean that we're not doing a very good job of getting the information to the people that need to have this resource. And so I know that Valley Can does really great stuff. Other than sharing the information on social media, what are the efforts that the Air District or this committee is taking to ensure that those who do qualify for this program are actually receiving this information? Because I'd hate to say that just because people are not signing up for it doesn't mean that they don't want it or don't need it or don't care about it. It might be a reflection of our community outreach. And so if you could speak a little bit on what the Valley Can and the Air District and the CSC is doing to ensure that this information is actually getting to those who need to hear this information, that would be great. It would be important to ensure and assess those practices before you move on to reallocate those funds.
100%. Thank you, Bianca, for being here, for your plug and your advocacy on EVs. I'll mention, I don't know if you were on, Kevin did kind of go over in high level all of the work that ValleyCan does just on a general basis. I will let you know at the CSC basis, we have not launched this program yet. So all of that outreach, we are continuing to work on, and we want to work with you all on. We want to bring a flyer in front of you. We want you all to help us attend community events and food distribution events and club meetings, whatever we can do. I'm trying to think time-wise, we might not have a lot of time today, but maybe we're going to pin that and talk maybe next meeting, or even have some discussion in between about that work. I will just also mention that sorry, you said something else and now my brain is going haywire. Oh, that we totally agree with you as well, that we're not, hopefully it's a strong outreach effort, and part of the assessment in 6 months isn't what do we need to do to change the program. It's an overall assessment. What was our outreach? Did we feel like we reached the right people? That's part of it. So I think we all are on the same page there. That makes a lot of sense to us.
Thank you both. Go ahead.
I just also wanted to add that one of the key elements of our existing program that's going to be incorporated into what happens when we open the programs in the AB 617 community will be that there's an ongoing assessment of what our outreach does and how well it impacts and gets into the communities. And this is something that our Valley-wide program had a requirement added in our most recent round of funding as a result of a Senate bill. I think it's 1382, but I get those numbers wrong more often than I care to admit. That will have us doing quarterly assessments, and I'm actually in the midst of our first quarterly assessment of outreach now. So, in addition to the live events that we've had and the way that we've outreached that those events are happening, the work with CBOs to get information to people and our other methods of outreach that we use. That assessment will be an ongoing process, and we do on the regular work to find ways to get new opportunities if we're seeing that we're not reaching people thoroughly enough.
Thanks, Kevin. And I did see that I missed a question from Mari Gonzalez, who asked, what is the average cost for maintenance on these electric vehicles? Do you have any guesstimates right now, Kevin?
In my experience, the maintenance is much less. So I replace my cabin air filter every year. I use less brakes because I have regenerative braking. I don't have oil changes. I find it funny that I have a Chevrolet Bolt is my second car that I got. I get letters from Chevrolet offering me discounts on oil changes, and I laugh at every one of those. So there's much fewer ongoing maintenance pieces with an electric car. We have a lot of electric car drivers. Heather has been driving electric along with me for years as well, and it's a much lighter level of ongoing maintenance compared to a internal combustion engine. So I've been very pleased with my maintenance experience. Tires can be a little bit harder. The electric cars have two things going against them for tire wear. One, that they have a tendency to be more powerful than you need. And it's almost funny to have that happen sometimes, is they're a little bit more get up, and so you have the capacity to spin a tire if you're lead footed, and that uses up a lot more power. Plus they tend to be a little heavier. So I have found that my tires wear slightly faster than my history of what I've used in gas cars in the past. But compare that to the oil changes and the regular tune-ups and other things that I've had to deal with in gas cars over the last decade. I've been very pleased with my maintenance history, and I think that most electric operators have seen that. Plug-in hybrid electric users will still need oil changes. They'll still need tune-ups and spark plugs and things like that. So they will see a very similar maintenance experience to a gas car. They still have catalytic converters, to speak to Bianca's point on the plug-in hybrids, but the all electrics, those ones, no catalytic converters, no smog checks ever. It's been a wonderful experience, and I wish I could tell everybody how much I love driving electric and get everybody to do it, because it's been a real joy.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for the lobbying. No, I'm kidding. Thank you for the advertisement and for providing some general clarification on that question. And Sandra, I see your question or your comments about the Air District connecting with COG, and I see the Air District has commented back great suggestions about connecting with COG for future funding for electric vehicle chargers. And it sounds like the Air District will be potentially sharing some of these financing companies they previously used, and expect to launch this program as soon as possible. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and transition to our next agenda item. So again, those of you who were in the meeting in December in person, not only did you have amazing food and a great time, but you also went to a separate World Cafe table where we talked about vegetative barriers and talked about implementation of that measure or potential implementation. So what we hope to do today is gain a better understanding of, as you all discussed at that meeting, a better understanding of some of the infrastructure needs, some of the partnership and collaboration needs that are vital to ensuring that there are not only locations to plant some vegetative barriers, but also to keep up with the infrastructure and the maintenance, and really to make this measure a successful implementation and one that can be sustained within the boundary. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it to the Air District to provide us an overview of the vegetative barriers measure.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos. Hi, everyone. I missed you all so much. I wanted to talk so much more during this meeting. So I'm going to have Eric, if you can pull up the slide. So one of the things we felt actually addressed a lot of what we heard during the meeting is this fact sheet that we want to get your feedback on, and then we want to provide to folks. So just as a way of background, we talked at the meeting, and we talk sometimes during these presentations about the two measures. One is called vegetative barriers, and another one is called urban greening. And one of the main points of feedback we heard is it's really hard to discuss both of them at the same time because they're different things. Yes, they both involve planting things, but they serve different purposes. So one of the great suggestions that we heard was to create a program fact sheet that allows folks to understand sort of the high level sort of 101, particularly about vegetative barriers. So Dr. Ramos just mentioned, and we've heard a lot from you all about locations that make sense to plant a barrier, which can be composed of trees or shrubs that are strategically blocking pollution and improve air quality in places. So we've heard a lot about location from you all, but the next steps in moving some of the things forward are all of us working together to find folks to take advantage of this funding. In order to do that, some of you felt like it made sense to have this program fact sheet. So I'm just going to high level talk about this fact sheet, definitely take any input and questions, and then we'll just really briefly talk about what we think makes sense for the next steps in having actually what we're going to launch in a vegetative barriers subcommittee. So really briefly, you can see here on this sheet, and actually, Eric, maybe because it's side by side, we can't quite zoom in, I don't think, when they're side by side. But, there we go, perfect. I was wrong. So it has a definition, like I just mentioned, of what a vegetative barrier is, which is one or more rows of trees or shrubs planted strategically near areas of concern to block pollution. That can include dust, that can include chemicals, and potentially even stop odors and improve the air quality in an area. The purpose of our program is to use the funding that's in your SERP to install barriers around or near sources of concern, or even maybe around or near sensitive receptors, like maybe along a school, or where folks gather within your community and improve air quality in specific areas. Who is eligible to participate? We have had success in a couple of other communities partnering with cities, with special districts, or we can partner with the county, nonprofits, tribal governments, public agencies, that includes schools, to be implemented within the community. We can also partner with businesses. So if folks say own a piece of land and we find that the barrier makes sense on their land, we can partner with them and see if they're interested in taking advantage. Some of the general requirements include permission to plant on the property. We can't go, as much as people might think it would be nice, we can't go and just plant a bunch of trees without permission. And then of course we want your investment from your SERP to last a long time. So we have to have whoever participates in this program maintain the barriers during a 10-year contract period. And then what does the funding cover? We wanted folks to be able to know that it covers up to 100% of eligible costs, which can include studying or trying to understand the best placement for the barrier, the materials, which of course include the vegetation, construction, maybe services to plant the trees. So if this interests you, if you have any feedback for us, or you're just interested in continuing part of the discussion, we wanted to tee up today the launch of a subcommittee in the next several weeks where we'll go over an RFP, which is essentially a legal kind of bureaucratic term for a call for proposals, where we ask folks to participate in this program. And you all will be a part of designing what that proposal looks like. So for those that are interested, we will send it out to everyone. So you don't necessarily have to say you're interested right now. You will all get an invite. But we want to bring to you all, what does that proposal look like? We want to take in all of the input we've already heard on location. And we want to get feedback, especially as if we have a little bit of time today on this particular piece of it, which is just letting folks know what a vegetative barrier is and how they can be a part of your program. So I'll actually just stop there and see if there's any questions regarding, or any feedback or any thoughts. Oops, there's one more line. Thank you, Eric. Just another piece of this, which we think is really important, is when we're talking about this program, we want folks to know what the benefits are. And so I just did mention, but it's just to go into it a little deeper. We want to make sure that there are spaces where we can block pollution. And so, of course, it can reduce near road pollution, it can improve public health, and it can reduce some heat in instances. And of course, we know that that can go a long way. So I'll stop there, see if anyone has any feedback on this. It is okay if you don't right now. We also want to send this out to you and have a broader discussion during a subcommittee meeting. I see Bianca's hand.
Go ahead, Bianca.
I have a question in regards to, I know that in our SERP, there's some money given back to the industry. Has the Air District reached out to these folks that are potentially applying for like the nut harvesters, these programs that are going to help the polluters, but given an extra incentive to do the vegetative barriers? I know that we had that discussion in Shafter, where we were looking at the company Wonderful that applied for a lot of the nut harvesters, but they're giving their part back in applying for the vegetative barriers as a part of a good neighborhood. So I was wondering, has the Air District done that outreach or talked to any of these growers that are polluters or industry that are polluters?
Great question, Bianca. Because we don't yet have that request for proposal developed with you all, and definitely want to make sure that you are all included in that, we have not yet reached out in a meaningful way because there's nothing yet for them to apply for. So that's a great point, Bianca. And to your point, you have a great example of that's exactly what we did in Shafter. But we can start that process, reach out to folks and just let them know that there will be a request for proposal released. But again, we don't want to release that without working with you all on getting input on that proposal request. So that it might be a little early to do the full outreach, but certainly to your point, we can start a little bit with just some high level outreach. Then once we launch the proposal that you've all supported, then we'll do the really deep outreach and send that the request for proposals to all of those contacts.
Thank you. Sandra, go ahead.
Thank you. Just wanted to kind of voice one of the comments in the chat from Maria Villa saying that to also keep in mind Fuller Acres that there is an empty lot there where there's a lot of pesticide spraying. So just wanted to echo that, but also it might be too preliminary to ask this question, but is there a possibility that the RFP could be split between like multiple nonprofits or between like multiple agencies?
Yeah, I'll just say yes. We are open to any partnership that comes to us, or to your point, say that RFP, maybe lots of really interested partners apply. We could work with that subcommittee to identify maybe splitting it up. There's no requirement that it's just one entity. And in fact, given the makeup of the community, that there's Lamont and Fuller Acres and Weed Patch and Arvin and county space between, we actually kind of expect that there might be multiple folks applying.
Sorry, follow-up question really quickly. How will the Air District ensure equitable like distribution of vegetative barriers throughout the entire boundary? Because there's a couple of communities within this boundary. So I don't know if this is a talk for in the subcommittee, but just curious now.
Great question. We can certainly talk more detail in the subcommittee. We just had a meeting with our team where we want to make sure that the RFP addresses that and mentions that there will be, that we want to look to have projects that are, sorry, that are in multiple parts of the boundary. So including kind of the Lamont Fuller Acres area, the Arvin area, just acknowledging that we don't intend the full amount to go to just one part of the community. But to your point, we can address that in detail during the subcommittee.
Anything else, Sandra?
No, sorry, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. María Estela, por favor.
Sí, buenas tardes a todos. Solamente mi comentario es que creo que ahora sí me siento a gusto en esto que están ahorita hablando, porque anteriormente ese era el problema de que se confundían, ¿verdad? Las barreras vegetativas con el otro programa, y creo que ahorita Jessica dio un buen informe de qué es y para qué es, y yo pienso que ya nada más es trabajar con el subcomité para desarrollar un plan de trabajo con los rancheros, con el comisionado, con la comunidad, o sea, armar un buen plan de trabajo para ver cómo se les va a dar mantenimiento a esas barreras vegetativas y que los dueños de terrenos nos apoyen para poner todos esos árboles, porque en realidad es algo que nos interesa a la comunidad y que nos va a ayudar mucho en la contaminación, más que nada que el polvo, la contaminación que trae ese polvo para nuestras comunidades. Entonces, me da mucho gusto escuchar lo que Jessica está hablando, y que creo que ahora sí ya nos estamos entendiendo con los programas. Ese era mi comentario, y pues a seguir adelante y formar ese subcomité.
Thank you so much, Maria, for that comment. It's much appreciated. We know that there's been some mix-up in the past, and it makes me so happy to know that today's conversation provided some clarity. Great. I see a previous comment in the chat from Christine about the vehicle replacement program. So if you'd like to take a look at that, you can see that now. I might read it in a little bit, but for now, I want to continue the conversation right now with the vegetative barriers. Are there any questions at this time? It sounds like the request is for the Air District, for the CSC members to stay tuned for an announcement for the subcommittee. You will all be invited, and you all can decide if you'd like to participate and be part of this request for future proposals. Want to make some space for anyone else that has any comments or questions? Jessica, I see your thumbs up. Anything else before we move to standing updates?
I just want to thank you all for your feedback and just let you know that there are folks that are advocates and co-leads that are working behind the scenes to help provide us this feedback. And they've been just a great partner in helping make sure to answer folks like Maria Estella's questions. So definitely, I appreciate the comments, Maria, but I also want to give a shout out to Sandra and Cesar and Bianca for helping make sure we're addressing your concerns.
Thank you all. This is Liz again. And if there are no other questions or comments, I'm happy to transition us to our next agenda item. So we'll open it up for our standing updates. And as most of you know, we carve out time at these meetings to listen and learn directly from agencies and community partners that are working on initiatives that impact the Arvin and Lamont community. So as you listen to these updates, and we have quite a few tonight, please type in any questions or concerns that you have in the chat or raise your hand, and we will make sure to take comments right after each update. And I'll just read aloud the order of the updates will go in, and it's the same as the agenda if you have that in front of you. We'll start with the Air District, then we'll hear from CARB, then DPR is here for an update. And then, as we heard earlier, we'll also hear an update from Kern Energy. And so we'll start with the Air District. Any updates?
We actually don't have any updates. We always want to save that space in case something comes up. But as mentioned, there are lots of great action items, and we'll follow up with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. So if nothing is coming up, we can move to CARB.
Okay. Yeah, and lucky I don't have anything either. The only thing I will do is point out that I believe it was one day last week, the district sent out on our behalf a couple of items that you might be interested in. One that listed some of the community air grants that were given out in San Joaquin Valley, and another one, the other item, darn it, I'm blanking on what it was. But anyways, they've sent it out, and I think that's about all I have to share tonight. Unless anyone has any questions or anything that they want to bring up to me.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, not seeing any questions or comments for CARB. So we can move to DPR. Any updates that you would like to share?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ivan Delgado, representing Air Programmer DPR, and I have an update which is as of January 1st, 2024, the 1,3-dichloroproppene or 1,3-D non-occupational bystander regulations are now in effect. These regulations mitigate both acute and cancer risk for 1,3-D, also known as Telone or Telone. If you want more information, you can please visit this website. I'm gonna share this website in the chat, and that's it for me.
Thank you. So it sounds like you'll share some more information in the chat. Any questions for Ivan?
I don't have a question, but I did want to use the DPR update to remind folks about our pesticide subcommittee, which is next Tuesday. Hopefully you all got the email, and we also sent out paper materials as well.
Yes, good reminder. Thank you. And I do see we have a couple hands up. Cesar.
Yeah, thank you for that update. I know Telone is something that's been used a lot in Kern, especially up in Shafter. And now that you mentioned the cancer risk, I think I definitely would like a little bit more information on what this means for the areas that do use a lot of Telone. maybe not now. I think maybe the pesticide subcommittee would probably be a better place for that. But yeah, I definitely like a little bit more information as to you know what this means for the surrounding areas. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Yvonne, how does that sound for maybe a little more information at our upcoming subcommittee meeting?
Yes, of course. We can provide more information for the next meeting. But in the meantime, if you maybe have time and want to look at the website, so you can maybe have more specific questions if you wish. If not, you can also ask us directly. And I always attend to these meetings. This is for everybody. And también hablo español. Así que tengan siempre la libertad de escribirme por el chat o háblenme directamente. I'm happy to answer questions in either Spanish or English. In summary, the new regulation, it's putting more regulations in place for 1,3-D. I know it sounds redundant. And also now for application, growers need to follow a more strict procedure, and they need to now apply something called a setback distance that's going to protect the public. And the setback distance, it's a bunch of tables that might be confusing. However, if you follow the link, we have created a interactive table where the growers can now put how big is their field and how much they want to apply and all that. So that table that is in the website, it describes the distance now that they need to use. It's the regulation is heavy on big words, and but there's nothing to lose if you want to spend a couple minutes trying to read the main website, and then for our next meeting we can answer your any question that you may have.
Thank you. And I see you shared the website in the chat. Bianca, go ahead.
I know it's going a little bit ahead, but has DPR done an assessment of what alternative growers are going to be using instead of T-loan? And if so, can we have the health hazards for community members? Because I know that in the past, DPR did present that T-loan was in the top 3 contenders being used in the Arvin and Lamont area. So I was wondering, by any chance, do they know any alternatives of growers using? I know that when they're starting to phase out certain products or chemicals, they give alternatives. So I was wondering, has DPR done any of that work? I know I'm going ahead, but I would like to know by the pesticide subcommittee meeting.
Yes, I have a question actually for the person running the meeting. How much time do we have? I don't want to go off time explaining things that can maybe wait.
We actually have a little bit of time. So yeah, I think if the community is okay with it, we can hear some more detailed answers from you.
Yes, I was gonna also, okay, thank you. I was gonna mention something about that we're working with OEHA, but I see that Lily is also raising her hand, so she can explain more about that. But in regards of alternatives to 1,3-D, we just started a 2-year contract with the California Council of Science and Technology. In summary, is that, to put it in plain language, a lot of people are suggesting us that we should use A, B, and C instead of fumigants. But for every alternative that people might mention, either A, B, or C, there are pros and cons, right? Now, if DPR does an internal investigation or study about this alternative, some people might think that it's conflict of interest, and some people might think that it might be a biased study. Therefore, we decided to contract the study outside DPR. And there's an agency called the California Council of Science and Technology, and they are going to be in charge of doing a very comprehensive study about alternatives of fumigants for the next 2 years. I know that 2 years sounds like a long time, but we try to come up with quick answers to the viewing alternative, and we found that after speaking with several experts in the field, that this is a very complex topic that that it needs a lot of people working on the subject, and it's better if DPR is not involved in that study, so that the study is independent and it's as accurate as it can be. Just the contract was just signed last month, and it's scheduled to finish in 2 years. But every 3 months, CCST, the agency that I just talked about, they're gonna come up with the report, and they're gonna speak about the updates on how the project is going every 3 months, every quarter. And now I want Lily to explain a little bit more about the work that we're doing with OIHA and 1,3D.
Yeah, thank you. To a couple of points that have been made, Cesar and Bianca, yes, you are right that, or also Yvonne, you're all three right that OIHA and DPR work on these health guidance values about pesticides together. And so to the point that Eastern Coachella Valley in the South Coast Air District has had 3 fumigants monitored, including 1,3D. We are still in the process of taking that 13-week environmental monitoring study, and we're going to share back with community in second quarter about what was determined about the exposure there. So that kind of helps set the stage of what we can learn and possibly improve on for Arvin, Lamont, and in the pesticide subcommittee meeting next week in the subcommittee. Hopefully we can talk more about details of your questions so that we can better prepare and get the consensus of what we learned from our previous community, Eastern Coachella, and in the monitoring, what we don't have health guidance values for, and in order to do adjustments to environmental monitoring, if that is possible, we could possibly learn more. And I think that that would be good conversation and then share it back with this bigger committee.
Thank you both for sharing. And I know that was a lot of information and really important information that was shared. So just want to pause and see if there are any questions coming up, anything you want to make sure to ask now before you have another chance at the pesticide subcommittee.
I just want to say one more thing. I try my best to explain this in a way that is clear and is accessible for everybody. But if at some point you feel that I'm speaking too much jargon, I'm using too many big words that don't make a lot of sense, please feel free to just ask for clarification in either English or Spanish. I'm more than happy to do that. I know we have translators, so a great job to those translators, but I understand also Spanish. So yeah, I'm here to answer all your questions, and I don't mind at all to repeat myself again and again using different words.
Thank you, Yvonne. And I see a hand from Bianca, and since I'm not seeing other CSC members with questions, I think we can take a public comment. So please go ahead. Bianca, did you have a question? I see your hand is up.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't hear my name being called. I'm sorry. Yeah, I missed a little bit about the Talone report back, and I was just wondering, what is the as a community here in Stanislaus County, we have an LSERP, and so we're doing a local grassroots SERP assessment here in our communities. And so I'm actually here in this meeting to learn about the implementation of what you guys are talking about. And I'm curious what efforts or what kind of authority the SERP might have upon the Ag Commissioner to implement the recommendations by the SERP. yeah, I think that I was just kind of curious about that.
Thanks, Bianca. Great question. I'm also happy to talk to you offline and also invite you to attend our subcommittee meeting where we will actually go over, and maybe even Eric, if you can drop in the link to the subcommittee page, you'll see there, Bianca, a list of all of the SERP commitments and next steps, including all of the collaborative work the Ag Commissioner has been working on. And at that meeting on Tuesday, there's an update that his office intends to provide regarding some of those commitments. So I think that might be the best place to start, but also I'll offer, and I'm sure the co-leads would have, or anyone on this call would also offer to meet with you and talk about kind of each of our perspectives on next steps.
Thank you. I would appreciate that.
Yeah, great question. And thank you, Eric, for dropping the subcommittee information in the chat. I see we have another member of the public with their hand up. Guadalupe, please go ahead.
Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Guadalupe López de Comunidades Aliadas, Tomando Acción. Para mí es muy importante que se dé la información, pues que se expanda más que nada, porque yo vivo en el área de Huasco, California. Estoy a 10 minutos de Chapter. Entonces, para mí es una preocupación porque próximamente en los siguientes meses se va a venir lo que es la temporada de la uva. Entonces, si no se le da seguimiento a este pesticida que está ocasionando cáncer, hay mucha gente que puede perder la vida por falta de esta información. Entonces, sí les pido de favor que den lo más explícito esta información para que se dé a conocer, porque desgraciadamente no hay información y estamos expuestos a todas las comunidades que estamos cerca de esos pesticidas que se están sprayando en los campos. Tengo un poquito de conocimiento de este pesticida, entonces sí es bien necesario que estemos informados de todo lo que está pasando y lo que nos está dañando a nuestros hermanos campesinos, y porque en California desgraciadamente no hay mucho para escoger, es más el trabajo en agricultura, entonces estamos expuestos a dañarnos más de muchos polvos que riegan, químicos. Gracias.
Maybe I can just quickly, hopefully, Guadalupe, it's so nice to have you on this call. This was awesome. And I see that our partner at DPR was unmuting, I think, to answer some questions. I think you dropped your contact information in the chat, but I'd love to connect with you. I think a lot of the work that we've been doing in the pesticide subcommittee certainly doesn't answer every question, and there's still a lot of work to be done. But we have also talked about notifications to community members. We've talked about informational flyers that are accessible. At our meeting on Tuesday, DPR intends to talk exactly about what Yvonne just mentioned, which is accessibility of like fact sheets and information. So just lots of great stuff we've already been doing, but we want to move forward on too. And so if you haven't already, if you can put your information, and we'll make sure to connect you with all of that and even give you a call and talk with you more about that work and how we'd like to have you and others continue to be involved.
Gracias.
Yeah, thank you. No, go ahead.
Just wanted to quickly address Guadalupe. Sí, Guadalupe, estamos trabajando aquí en el estado, en el Departamento del Aire, para tratar de monitorear todos estos pesticidas en el área. Ahora también, como entenderás, California es un estado bastante grande y es un poquito difícil pues monitorear cada ciudad o cada comunidad en específico, ¿no? Pero sí estamos monitoreando en Shafter, que está cerca de Huasco, como decías, y pues los resultados se presentan todos los años. Todos los años tenemos resultados de Shafter. Hace un par de meses se publicó los resultados de monitoreo de Shafter de los últimos 3 años. Pero claro, estamos tratando seguimos trabajando. No, por el momento no hay planes de poner monitoreos en Huasco, pero sí vamos a seguir monitoreando Shafter. Es más, yo voy a estar por ahí este fin de semana. Me toca ir a poner los ejemplares para recolectar la información del aire en el área de chapter. Y
Ok,
sí,
muchas gracias.
y como decía Jessica, la próxima semana que tenemos la reunión con el comité de pesticidas, podemos conversar un poco más. Me acaban de informar, I've been just told too that sometimes my sound, it sounds like too low. So if at any point I'm speaking, but nobody can hear me, please start me right away and I can scream louder or I can get some other earbuds.
Thank you, Yvonne. I can hear you fine. I'm just not sure if the translation worked for English. Did the English folks hear it in English?
Worked for me.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I see another hand from Sandra.
Yeah, sorry. This isn't pesticide related, so I apologize for going back a little bit, but I was asked if, or we would like to ask if there is any possibility of the car replacement program year moving. I think 2006 is a little far back. So we're wondering if there's any possibility that we can decide to make it like 2009, 2014. I don't know, whatever folks thinks is best, but is that
Yeah, I can address that. I think where we landed to Jesus's question about just program assessment after 6 months, that can be maybe one of the things we look at. 2006 and older captures a really dirty set of cars. There tends to be, based on kind of technology installed in the cars are a little bit cleaner after that. I think to your point, you're just making sure that enough folks have cars that old to be a part of the program. And so I think we'll have that ability to understand that once we launch the program and start to see folks come in. As mentioned, I'll just say data from our team, as well as anecdotally, like I mentioned, I was just in a community on Saturday. There are lots of cars in these types of communities that are 2006 and older. And we expect the same makeup in the Arvin area. But like I said, we're committed to doing a full assessment of outreach of eligibility, and that includes the car year if that seems to be the reason why folks might not take advantage once we launch and do that full capacity. Thanks, Sandra.
Yeah, thank you for that question and response. I want to pause and see any other questions or comments about EPR before we hear our last update. Not hearing anything, but thank you so much, Yvonne, for the updates and for engaging with the community. We can move to our next update, which is from Kern Energy. So they have, oh, I see a hand from him. Is it about the pesticides still?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Sorry, I was trying to get to the hand thing. My quick question is regarding DPR. Has DPR ever committed any studies regarding nitrates leaking into underwater tables due to pesticides? Because one of the things that I've noticed as a water advocate is that water districts and low-income communities have to spend more infiltrating water and cleaning water during the winter months when storms come due to the nitrates leaking from topsoil due to pesticide. And one of the resolutions that the state water board has advocated for this is basically making wells in areas where there isn't any nitrates or arsenic, but that's physically impossible in California since the land is mainly used for agricultural development. And just because you spray in one field doesn't mean that when it gets down to the water table, it mixes, basically.
Yes. Well, the thing is that because this is a meeting more related to air, I represent the air program. DPR also has a surface water and underground water programs. So they might have the answer to that question. But it seems like Lily may have some wisdom to share with the rest.
Yes, thank you. I actually do know some things about that. So just intersectionally, OEHA works with the other boards and departments in Cal EPA, but I also do know that OEHA works with the Department of Public Health. And the Department of Public Health Environmental Health Investigations Branch, to the detail, I don't know what they're doing, but they are aware of nitrites in water in the Central Valley. And that's about what I know. If individually more information you would like to have, Department of Public Health Environmental Health Investigations Branch is a good place to try to reach out. And I can help try to connect a staff person, scientist, but without more information, it's a good starting point, I think.
Yeah, thank you for that question and for the follow-up. So I think if there are no other responses, we can keep moving along. But do feel free to pause or put any questions or comments in the chat. We'll be sure to record them. But we do have Kern Energy here, and they have heard the request to provide these standing updates regarding their facility and their operations. So in order to ensure that their updates moving forward address your interests and concerns, their team is here tonight to provide some background on their work and to hear from you all some initial ideas on topics that you would like to hear in more detail in the future. And so happy to welcome Kern Energy.
Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Gabe Castro with Kern Energy. Just as Liz had mentioned and Jessica had mentioned earlier in the meeting, the district did reach out to us from feedback that had been gathered from the CSC that more of you would be interested to hear from Kern. So thank you for having me here this evening. A little bit about me. I've worked for Kern for the last 20 years. Most of that time has been in the health, safety, and environmental department. My current role right now is environmental manager. I've lived in Kern County my entire life, and my wife and I have raised 3 girls here in Kern County. We look forward to being part of the standing update section of these meetings and sharing information with all of you about Kern Energy and our operations. For today, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Kern Energy and what we do. Kern Energy is a small, independently operated transportation fuel provider. Our single facility is at Panama and 184, just adjacent to Hilltop. We operate the only small refinery, or we operate one small refinery, which has been in operation for 90 years. We're the only refinery producing gas between the Los Angeles and Bay Area, producing both gasoline and diesel. In 2009, we began producing renewable diesel from biofeed. And since then, we have produced more than 57 million gallons of renewable diesel. And since 2012, we had blended 72 million gallons of biodiesel. These are some of the ways that we work to reduce transportation-related emissions. At Kern Energy, it is my job to ensure that we follow all federal, state, and local rules and regulations so we keep our workers and the community safe. All 200 of us that work here at Kern are committed to leading California's clean transportation fuel evolution while being good stewards of people and planet. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to share information about our company, and we look forward to being with you at future AB 617 meetings.
Thank you so much, Gabe. And just want to open it up to the community to see if there are any ideas coming up that you would like us to note, like to share with Kern Energy for future meeting updates. Yeah, Sandra, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Reviewing the APR last year, I did see that the Kern Energy Refinery had 36 violations, which equals up to more than 1 a month. We do get a lot of videos and calls from residents seeing flares, smoke, and a bunch of other scary issues. That being said, I think in these standing updates, we would, the community would really like to see, one, what the violations are monthly, and two, how we can access them and look at them. And then additionally, I host monthly meetings in the Fuller Acres community, and one of the big standing issues in that community is to know how the Current Energy Refinery can be a good neighbor. So I would definitely love to collaborate with Current Energy to find out like if there's any room for collaboration or any way that y'all can, be great to the residents in Fuller Acres.
Yes, we would definitely be open to that.
Yeah, thank you. And just want to, just for our action items, does it sound reasonable to our folks from Current Energy for you to bring the information every month about the number of violations that month and also information for how the CSC members can access those?
So I'll jump in there. Hi, this is Melinda Palmer from Current Energy. I think what is really helpful for us is to be able to hear kind of that list of what you're interested in, Sandra. So we really appreciate the specificity of what you gave there. And I think for us to be able to take that list back and to hear, other concerns or other topics that you're interested in hearing more about, is that we can then take that back to our team and kind of develop what is the best way to provide our updates to the CSC and make sure that we're being responsive to those.
Thank you, Melinda. I can drop my email and my phone number in the chat. And then if y'all want to reach out or if you guys want to drop your email, whatever's easier so we can connect.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. And I see we have a few more hands up. We can go with Cesar.
Yeah, thank you. So like Sandra said, the group that she meets with, she gave them the number for the Arvin reporting platform. And they also make some reports where they send pictures of black smoke that comes up from the stacks. And there's also complaints of a strong smell that comes. This is something that regulators from other agencies have come and they've also witnessed like a very strong either petroleum smell or something that smells like something rotting coming from the facility. So I was wondering if y'all could help us understand what those smells are, where they're coming from, and what that black smoke is.
Thank you for those additional comments there, Cesar. Those are great for us to go ahead and be able to put on our list. I mean, certainly we strive to operate in a way where we don't have visible emissions and where we don't have odors. And I can't stand here in front of this group and say that, we're 100% perfect at that, but certainly it's, I hope you can understand it's difficult for us to be able to say with certainty tonight with just a broad reference to emissions or odors and be able to give you a specific answer to a certain incident that might have stemmed from. But like I say, it's good for us to have a list of what those concerns are so that we can do some planning and some work to come back to the group with.
Awesome, thank you. And I think just one last part, I know I've been updated by some of the district inspectors that go that some of that smell is tallow that's used in your refining process. And I'm just interested in how that's used and why that smell comes from the tallow.
Okay, got that noted. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And Jesus, go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if it's necessarily somewhat related to the refinery. Similar to the referring to the fines or the violations that were identified earlier, would it be possible to get updates on where the funds of those fines go. I understand that part of the fines have to go to reducing emissions. I think it's to like a SEP or something like that. I guess what I'm getting at is, I want to see that these fines are going to reducing emissions in our area, or in our communities.
Thanks, Jesus. And I think you're talking about like the fees that they would pay if they got an NOV from the district. Is that the question?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, we'll make sure. I think we've addressed that in the past, but we'll make sure next time we have an update, just given time, that we talk a little bit about how it's just in general how those get distributed to reduce emissions and to do outreach and a lot of other good things for the valley.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of really informed members, and really appreciate the specificity you're bringing to your comments. Luis, I see your hand is up, but we do go with our CSC members before the public. So I see Gustavo, your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for Current Energy to join us. I heard that I think there is an average of over 30 violations per year. And I'm assuming some of those violations are repetitive. I think for us as community, what can you do to be a better neighbor? Is if you know that I think I will say I will assume that most of those violations are repetitive. For you to plan to bring those to zero if possible, because if those are happening time and again, what are you doing to avoid those? Because I've been, around the community, and I reported several times. Sometimes there are violations, sometimes it's just, the flares going up, high up. So I think for us as community, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but for me, it will be, how can you reduce, minimize or bring to zero if possible those kind of violations. I think that will help us have a little bit cleaner air in our area.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. And Sandra, go ahead.
Sorry, quick follow-up. Because y'all were asking for specifications. I think one thing that we've also heard from the community of Fuller Acres is that I believe a couple years ago along Highway 184, the refinery had really tall kind of bushes and kind of like vegetative barriers there that have since been kind of cut down, and they would just like to see them be placed there again to ensure that, there is that barrier that's put to ensure community is safe. And then another thing, on January 8th at around 6 p.m., I got a photo from a resident with a flare happening at the refinery. I just wanted to ask a very basic question because I'm not too well informed on oil and gas, but are flares normal to be coming out of refineries? Like, should we expect flares, or is that something that, shouldn't be happening?
So I think actually, as we've been thinking about what makes sense to bring to the committee, Sandra, flaring and information about what a flare's purpose is and why it's an integral part of the refinery is definitely high on our list. So I think your question is very well taken and resonates with us. In this moment, it certainly will do some follow-up for you and make it far more informative. But to answer your question in the moment, yes, flares are a key part of a refinery. They're actually a safety device that gives us basically the protection for a safe place for any excess gases to go. So they are part of the design. They serve a very basic need. And while we take all the measures that we can to minimize flaring, they are actually the safest disposition for any additional or excess gases to make sure that it's not being released in any kind of safe or unsafe or potentially harmful or impactful way. So they serve a very important job for us.
Okay, thank you. And are the smells normal? Because I feel like around like the winter time, I get a lot of calls from residents saying that it smells really bad, like Cesar was explaining. So is that also like a side effect of just living next to a refinery? Or is that potentially something that is contaminating the air and putting folks in danger?
I wouldn't go so far as to say it's contaminating the air or putting folks in danger. Certainly, we want to be good neighbors and not be noticed in that way. I can't even say, Sandra, that all the smells that Fuller Acres or Hilltop smells are necessarily coming from the refinery. But one of the things that we do, and we work closely with the Air District on, is that any information we can get when a community member notices an odor, is that the earlier that we can hear about it, then the more quickly we can take action to determine if in fact we're the source of that. And if we discover that we are, then that's the quicker that we can take action about it.
Yeah, thank you again for the questions and comments and the responses. I see one hand up still from Luis. I would love to hear your question or comment at this time. Luis, I'm not sure if you have a question still. I see your hand is raised, so I'll give you another moment. May have been an accidental hand raise. Feel free to put your question or comment in the chat though, and we'll make sure to record it. I'll just review the chat really quickly to make sure. Okay, and so there's another question in the chat I want to make sure gets read out loud from Cesar. Could we also get the opacity limits of the flare and your boiler towers for those future updates? And I see nods, so it sounds like yes, that is added to the list. And I'm not seeing any more questions or comments. So I think we can wrap up our standing updates agenda item, and just want to thank everyone who joined and shared these updates. I'll move us along to wrapping up our meeting, and I see we're getting close to the end of our time, so I'll try to be a little quick about it. So I'm going to quickly share my screen to show us our next meeting dates. So as was mentioned a little earlier in the meeting, there is a pesticide subcommittee happening on Tuesday, January 30th. So next week on Tuesday from 4 to 5:30. And we really hope everyone can join. If not, the meeting will be recorded and available online. And then we also want to announce our next agenda setting meeting will be next Thursday, February 1st at 4 p.m. And again, that's where we plan and prioritize items for the next agenda. And then our next CSC meeting will be February 28th at our usual 5 o'clock. And I'll stop sharing. And I see a comment in the chat, and I'll just read it out loud for the record. It's concerning to hear industry reps make statements about how impacts in regards to the flares, maybe the air district should respond to those questions, and appreciate the feedback, and we'll note that as well. And again, as we wrap up, I will share some action items as we normally do to help facilitate this transparent process. And give me one moment while I pull up the screen. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see these action items. The first is to provide the Air District will provide a comprehensive update on the vehicle replacement incentive measure implementation at our June meeting, and that is 6 months from now, as was mentioned. And next, as a part of the community outreach for the passenger vehicle replacement program, Valley Can will connect with local CBOs and organizations and provide flyers to distribute as a part of that outreach. Next, CSC members are encouraged to visit the evequity.com website, which provides assistance and education to the community about electric vehicle incentive programs. Our next action item, the Air District will launch a vegetative barriers subcommittee for the CSC to participate in the development of an RFP, which is a request for proposals. And that is to find local partners who can implement the work in your community. And our last item is, as part of the standing updates, Kern Energy will report on the number of violations, capacity limits of the flares, and boiler towers. And we also have noted the list of the other topics that will be brought to those updates as well. And so just want to pause to see if there are any action items that were mischaracterized or anything that we missed that you want to make sure you record. Please do let us know. Since I'm not seeing any, I think we can truly transition to wrapping up this meeting. And again, want to thank everyone for being here. And I want to invite our co-leads to see if there are any closing remarks that either of you would like to share with the group at this time.
I appreciate all the information that was given, and especially the openness and also all the answered questions. I did enjoy this meeting, that we were able to understand a little bit of each program and other topics from different agencies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Try to turn my video on. I'm not sure what's going on. Yeah, thank you to all the agencies that came on, all the very helpful updates. And I'd just like to know one thing that Yvonne said about making things understandable and accessible to community members. I think that's a very important note, and I think it's important that we make all of the information that comes out of AB 617 and to the community as accessible and understandable as possible. So thank y'all for coming with those types of updates.
Yeah, thank you, Bianca and Cesar, for those comments, and also all of the prep work that you did to make this a really great and informative meeting. And at this point, would like to invite Jessica to see any closing remarks from you.
I just want to echo the thanks to Bianca and Cesar and others who coordinated and helped us. It was, the reason we're able to come and show up in the way that we've been showing up is because of all of you and the feedback you give us. So thank you. And thanks to all of our other partners for helping answer questions tonight. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone else. I hope you all have a lovely evening, and